I'm the real Ted G, and you're joining my podcast, the Real Ted G Podcast. And in my series of people that are great at what they do, I have another guest with me, and his name is Sal Rizzolo with Cardinal Finance. He'll tell us a little bit about himself in a second. Well, Sal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I love being a part of the people that are good at what they do podcast, because then I don't even have to talk about it. I appreciate that. So, I mean, super quick and brief. I run a mortgage branch for Cardinal Financial. We just opened an office recently in Patchogue. We've been doing relatively well despite what's going on in the market. We've been very lucky to build relationships with people that have made that possible for us, you included, and among other people that I've known since I got into business. And yeah, that's really it, and that's how we came to know each other too.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you because you're very good at mortgages. We've had several conversations about numbers, and you shared the name with someone else that I knew from a long time ago that could make a deal happen. Really knew how to work the deal.
I remember.
Yeah, he's passed on now. So, but you shared the same name, so it was a little irony. One of the other things that you're doing really well is you have a very fun Instagram following, social media, and I was just talking about this on my previous podcast. It's a really fun approach. You get a lot of hits, you get a lot of views, right? You get a lot of likes, a lot of followers.
It is, yeah. It's. Okay. I mean, I go on about this stuff for days, because when I first started doing social media, I mean, I had an Instagram that was 8 years old and had 6 things posted on it for forever. I hated social media. I was afraid to take pictures. You know, if I ever went missing, my milk carton picture would be from 3rd grade. It was, the worst of the worst for social media. And I was approached and basically told that, like, I needed to break that. And I refused and I refused and I refused. And then it ended up being someone that I really wanted to work with, Charles, a handsome home buyer. Mm-hmm. And he basically told me, he's like, listen, I want to work with you, and, and I think we'd be great together. But my presence on social media is super important. Like, people need to know who you are. And basically it gave me like that ultimatum.
See, I was given the exact opposite ultimatum.
Stop doing social media?
I wasn't told to stop. It's just that I was using social media, and I actually had first a gentleman, then a whole company that was just responsible for it. Set it and forget it. I hardly watched it, because I do see the drawback to social media, that you get kind of like drained in. And so I just had the approach, like almost anything else. I pay for my car insurance, but I don't necessarily check on it every day. So let's just do it like that. Then at some point, something dawned on me, and it was like, wait a minute, I'm not getting as much engagement. And then I was working with a company, and they said, well, the rep at the time said, maybe you should be a little, more like, I said, what, like lip sync to music? Like, so that's all I've seen. I sat there and watched for a day, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's just lip syncing to music. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I actually, I don't know why I had a Spider-Man costume, but I do. I have Spider-Man costumes. I have wigs. I have magic wands. Yeah,
costume.
Put half of it on, maybe. I don't know. And then I just started fiddling with and it got some nice engagement. It got some, the videos were funny. The videos were meant to be funny, and if I'm nothing if not an entertainer, apparently. So and that's all I did. And then it's not that I was told not to do it, but because I continued to do it. It was like, oh, why are you doing those videos? And it's like, well, they're fun. And I said, if the more and more people that say, oh my God, that was so funny, that was entertaining, I'm good with it. That's the only reason I was doing it. I didn't think someone was going to say, wow, he looks pretty good in that Spider-Man costume. I'm sure he could sell my house too.
Right.
I don't think those two things go hand in hand either. Well, anyway, but I do admire your creativity on them. I think your music videos, I think about it. I think I have written down an idea, and I'm like, how are we going to do it?
I think we went over it. We're gonna discuss it after this and tweak everything around.
Yeah, I'm totally. Can I give away an idea?
It's your idea.
Well, this is a new my idea.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking because I'm on the treadmill 6 times a week at my gym, and every so often they play all this different music, and it's all fun, and I'm listening to the song Holy Grail with it's Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake. I'm like, how can you change the lyrics to be like real estate, finance, the mortgage industry? And I'm thinking this really could lend itself to that, and that's my new idea.
So we need to find something that rhymes.
Yeah.
So see, I have a big idea too, and it's coming out soon. I'll tell you about it after this. Not that anybody's going to take it, but who cares? Fuck it. The old Eminem and Dr. Dre song, Guilty
one?
Conscience.
I don't know if I know the song. I know Eminem.
The video's amazing. It's about basically an angel and a devil on a guy's shoulder, and they go back and forth the whole time.
I have seen it. I love that.
Yeah. So we're gonna do like, Guilty Conscience, but
Should I buy? Should I not?
basically,
Okay.
or like a lender that's trying to rip somebody off versus a lender that's trying to do the right thing, an attorney that's telling him to go one way but he should go another way. So it's already written. I just got to record it and but I mean, the way that you said like there's no explanation at the end of the road because everyone just wants to see things that are funny. So like when you sit down and you're like, hey, my name is Sal and I work for Cardinal Financial and I ran a branch for the last 3 years and I'm here with Ted and we're here to talk about, like, that's gone. It
doesn't make it interesting.
They've already left. Right. So if you can explain what you're trying to tell people without telling them the same way that everybody else is telling them, I think that's the key to social media because people want to be entertained and engaged. And we're industry professionals, so to us it makes sense to just constantly pump the same thing out to people, but people don't want to hear that shit.
No, and actually, one of my favorite podcasts that I've done is with one of my agents, Susan. It was just a very nice, natural conversation, and it wasn't anything that we wouldn't have had the same conversation at my conference table downstairs, or her kitchen table. It was about some of the stuff that has happened to her in the industry, some of the things that worked, some of the prospecting, and I like. People said that they liked the podcast, and I said, yeah, there's probably more learning in that 32 minutes because it was like, oh, so tell me. Susan, what do you think? You've been around 24, over 2 decades, and you've been successful the majority of those years. So, and she spelled it out: consistency, prospecting, knowing where your business comes from, all good stuff. But it wasn't like what you said. It was a little bit more of a conversation. But I felt like the learning. Like I got started on these podcasts for one other very self-serving reason. I had these new agents. I still have them, and they were just discussing something. They were discussing how to handle an objection. By the way, I'm right here. Don't ask me. Please watch a podcast. And I get this and I hear this answer out of my agent, and it just like makes your ear bleed. And it goes, and I'm like, what?
Where did that come from?
I was like, that's not even like I couldn't even see that on a sitcom. I've seen better training for real estate on what's that show?
Selling Sunset.
No, I don't watch that show. It was on the air. Phil Dunphy is the character.
Oh,
Modern Family.
Modern Family, yep.
Modern Family. You want training on real estate? Just go look at all of Phil Dunphy's scenes because they're textbook 101. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. It was like the agent. Oh, my next guest is right here. So, and I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I said, and would you hear that? Did you hear it on Tom Ferry Summit? Did you hear it? No. Oh no, this person who is a real estate agent and has a podcast. I'm like, well, have you checked as this person that she may have a podcast? Does she have any sales? She may have a podcast, but does she have any success? And obviously not judging by that one, but by the one thing that I did here. So anyway, I was like, really? They're listening to this stuff? I'm like, okay. Well, they're not willing to listen to me because when I do a meeting, they're all on their phones. So you know what? I'll just do my podcast. Maybe my own agents will listen to me. Well, anyway, that's how I got started on podcasts.
Or do they?
Do they? Oh, I know they watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, they watch.
So like what I've seen is the outlandish stuff, the funny stuff, the creative stuff is what drives people to you, and those people will watch your content. Like they'll go back and they'll watch your content. They'll look to you for answers. But you would think that they would find the answers from you and then explore, but it doesn't work like that because what catches your eye is not the same thing that everyone else is doing.
Yep.
So when you have videos like that, like I always pin like the funny stuff that we do, or I always push that, or I'll run ads on that, and it's more important that those go out. And I've literally gotten comments on some of my educational stuff, like literally stuff like comments like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about too. Like that was one of the comments. Like, oh, this is actually informing, because people don't expect it, but they'll look for it.
Yeah, you don't have to make a joke of it. Like my joke is whenever I talk to mortgage people, I always say, does underwriting really exist? We always hear it. It's in underwriting. Yeah. Okay. It's in underwriting. Oh, and my next client, he's my client, but my next guest, he would be the underwriting. He said, Ted, we'll go into underwriting. I'm like, okay, never been there.
Yeah, it's intangible. It's not a real place.
Yeah, it's like it's in underwriting. So does it really exist?
Well, depends on the loan officer, because some loan officers use underwriting as like I'm away until Friday and I don't feel like answering the phone, so it's in underwriting.
Oh, I say I'll get back to you shortly.
Yeah, as soon as it's out of underwriting. Oh, the underwriter's out. That stuff does happen, but the way that, I mean, I've worked at 2 different banks with 2 different systems. Usually once a loan goes into underwriting, it's locked. So like, you put all the documents in, you make your explanations, you get the, you make your case if it's a tough loan or whatever, and then you send it into underwriting. And it's in there, right? We have the ability to see the files while we're in underwriting, but we're not supposed to touch them. And if you do, the underwriter's going through the file. Like, they don't want you to change anything because they're basing it off of that loan that was submitted. Then it comes out of underwriting, hopefully clear to close, or with conditions, or rejected or suspended, even worse. But yeah, it's like a back and forth. Like, you're shooting a goal, you're shooting a soccer ball, and it either makes it past them, or they catch it and they throw it back at you, and hopefully it's not on fire. So sometimes you're like, I calculated the income this way, and they're like, no, we're calculating it this way, and they send
This
it back.
sounds just like we'll get audited from Coldwell Banker from our
it's gotta be
franchise.
the same thing.
But we have the audits. It's hysterical because the admins are your underwriting department. No, you can't do anything. You can't touch it. You can't touch it. But I'm like, well, I'll just get the file. Oh, is that what's missing? Hold on, I'll just fill it in. It's not a problem. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then, you'll see, like, they'll be going through it, and they'll be like, oh, missing a explanation letter for this. So you're like, okay, the borrower signed it and we sent it back, and they're like, no, don't put it in the file. So then they kick it back, and then we put it back and kick it back.
Right. The process. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Cardinal has like a really cool system where, and this is not a shameless plug, but we have what's called a wait step, where if there's 3 or less conditions, they won't kick it back. They'll put it in this like magic wait step for 24 hours, and they'll give us a chance to fix it and send it back again.
So it won't go back to the
Bottom of the pile.
Bottom of the pile. Right.
Yeah.
The pile that I've always heard about.
Yep, and it never does. So the way that Cardinal is set up is the loans with the least amount of outstanding conditions automatically go to the top of the pile.
Okay.
So the ones that are brand new they won't sit down there forever. They'll move up like normal. But but Cardinal knows when you're trying to clear a loan and you have some back and forth going on, we can't wait 3 or 4 days every time we make a mistake or the borrower fails to comment on something.
Okay.
So that's why you've seen, that's why we close our loans so fast.
Yeah. Oh no, I have no complaints. You guys are on it.
Yeah.
Now, so obviously, I veered off a little bit, but because when I'm doing these episodes that I'm like with people that are great at what they do, and make no mistake, Sal's here because he's a great mortgage loan officer, but their Instagram is really funny too. So I enjoy it. I enjoy watching those videos. So I have asked specific questions. So there's like a handful of questions I got to go through. So the first one is, if you had to choose, Elvis or the Beatles?
I would say at this current date, Elvis, because I just got finished watching the movie.
That was a cool
3
movie,
times.
right?
Yeah, and now it's just stuck in my head.
I had to watch it twice in one weekend. I mean, streaming. I don't go to movie theaters anymore. Apparently, but yeah, I loved it.
What a way for Tom Hanks to go out if he doesn't make any more movies. Like, that's how you're gonna leave.
I didn't even know Tom Hanks was in it until I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, wow, that guy looks like Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Imagine if you oh no, that's him. There's no way that could be him. He's like mean. I've never seen him mean in a movie before. So now
he's in character.
Yeah, I think he's in real life character.
Oh, maybe.
I think there's like one video online of Tom Hanks like freaking out in real life, and it was like buried by his publicist. Like, he's human.
He's married to a Greek woman. Yeah. I can't imagine him not freaking out.
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
But yeah, I'd go with Elvis.
Oh, Elvis, me too. And that's been the underdog.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, really? The Beatles?
Nope. Hard to find another Elvis fan in this whole world.
Well, I think
and I love both.
And they were both iconic, but to me they both meant more than what their music was. But Elvis was more, to me, like, Elvis was like an Eminem 30, 40 years ago. Like, didn't belong where he was, but was still there. Wasn't supposed to be good at it, but was better than everybody else. Yeah. And went down in history, and unfortunately died young. But
yeah. Now, so my other question is, what do you love most about your industry or what you do?
Personally, like, I can go out to events, or I can go out to parties, or I could throw parties, and I could convince myself that I'm doing it for business, so I can do it as often as I want. I think that's like it's a fine line, because I know a lot of realtors that go to 9 parties a week and don't do any deals. lenders too. But I do like the whole like social aspect. When I was younger, I sat in the back of the class. I wore glasses. I was afraid to talk to people. I was the complete opposite. I broke out of that being a barber for 15 years. I was constantly talking to people because I was trying to divert their attention from me screwing up their haircut.
Right. You gotta.
And that parlayed into the mortgage industry. And I mean, I obviously like to talk, and being able to educate people, being able to be the reason why people are able to do things, is a big thing for me. And then being able to enjoy myself while I'm doing that. So
you enjoy the networking.
But it's inadvertent to me. Like, I don't even think about it. It's not like I don't have a calculation to it. I don't say, oh, okay, I gotta hang out with Ted because we're trying to get business from Ted, or I gotta go to this networking event and talk to these people and bring cards. I don't even bring cards with me to networking events.
I can't tell you how many times I don't have a card on me.
No, like and the crazy part now is with social media is like, half of these events I go to, the people either have known me or seen me, and the conversation is like, how do I know you? Instead of like, what do you do? So people will work with you because they want to work with you for who you are, and that's always worked for me at the barbershop. And
I believe in the networking. I mean, mingling. And there's we obviously strayed away from it through the COVID shutdown, and I think that was more of an excuse. With the industry, and I don't think we do enough of it. Maybe that's my own opinion. I'm doing 3 different things this week. One of them is one of my agents is on some kind of patchwork chamber and something about business owners. Okay. I told John about it already, so I think I'm doing that on Thursday. But yeah, I enjoyed that too. I agree. Now, what do you enjoy least about what you do?
The cyclical nature of the business, especially now. I enjoy it the least as of right now.
The ups and downs.
Yeah. So
the roller coaster.
Yeah. So what I think is moving forward, like the next podcast we do, I would like to be able to move that into the things that I like about the business, because I'd like to set myself up so that when there is a downturn, I can hand most of it off to my employees, or I can manage a little bit from afar and explore other endeavors. But obviously, I learned all my lessons the hard way. So coming into this, we were doing business like it was never going to end. Everybody that I know included. So it's not a business where you could say, hey, I know I'm going to make this forever, and I can count on it. So that in a way is already part of the reason why I enjoy it, but it's also the main thing to be scared of, I guess.
What I get out of that, the downturn or maybe the up and down, the transition is a time that real estate is the most fun to me. The transition, though, is also the time that most real estate agents would find the scariest. And currently, we're in a transition.
Yeah.
By most people's standards.
Well, I don't think there's anybody that, even if you're doing more business now and you're lucky enough to be doing more business, it's for a different reason.
Yes. And what do you think that reason is?
So we were talking about this with people, but it makes more sense on this category is like the amount of business might have cut by 50% or 60%, but the amount of industry professionals has also cut by the same amount, maybe even more. So the mind state of people that were already doing only doing 1 or 2 deals here and there, 60% of 2.
Right, they left the business.
Could be 0, exactly. Or their license are in the middle of expiring.
And then those 2 transactions they had because they were related, that was their cousin and their aunt, get to go to, and most times in this industry, when it's
a real estate professional.
Yes. In the transition period, like I said, a lot of people get scared, including our sellers and our buyers, our clients. So when you're scared, what do you need? You need a professional, or you need an expert. And I think that's the only reason. My business is just driven. In the last 6 months, it could have, like a switch went off and suddenly people are calling and I'm like, wonder why this person remembered me. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And it just has to do, it helps to have some reviews. I should have more, but it helps to have like your success stories online, how many, houses that are sold. Suddenly it matters. Suddenly it matters if you know how to do a transaction. Suddenly it matters if you know how to see a deal file and say, okay, this is going to go through underwriting.
Well, so I'll tell you why I remembered you and why we met way before we ever met, just over the phone, because I have a house in Patchogue and it was uncomparable, right? There were no houses anywhere near in the area, but there was one house under contract, and I remember reaching out to you, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of trying to refinance my house to take cash out of it, and I wanted it to appraise for as much as possible, but everything in the area was lower. But there was a white elephant that was listed for sale by you. And at the time, I didn't know you, so I didn't even remember until we talked about it. And I think then it was Willits, I think was the name of the street.
No, that's the waterfront currently.
Okay. Hewlett, Willett. Okay.
Yes.
So it was Hewlett, and I remember calling you, and I'm like, I'm gonna call this guy, and he's gonna tell me to go myself. Like he's definitely like, I'm not telling you anything. It was.
I love those agents.
I know.
Fine, don't tell me.
And I called. I said, I know I'm not supposed to ask you this. I said, but I'm trying to refinance my house, and you were like, don't worry about it. It's being sold, and it's being sold for more than what it's up for. And I just said, that was it. That's all I need to know. I said, I'll wait the 30 days. And it did. And why that stuck out was this was a real estate. I mean, this was obviously a professional, but this was in a market where anybody could sell a house. So, supposedly. But that house would have never sold $200,000 over other comps in the area if it wasn't sold the right way or marketed the right way.
It found the perfect buyer, and I used my magic wand.
So did you have an appraisal waiver on that house?
No. The owner of that house is my next guest.
Really?
But
no way.
I won't divulge details, but the reason it did go through, because the phone call I got repeatedly from different agents, I guess, because maybe their buyers were saying, well, what about that house? It really was a great house. It is. It's a spectacular backyard. It's a spectacular house.
It had everything, though.
I wanted that house. It had everything you could ask for. It still does.
Princess Gate.
Yes, Princess Gate is so different. But so I kept getting, an agent would call, and it's a very, very, very known agent, very well known agent, and she said, oh, well, did it sell? I said, yeah, it sold for number. I don't mind. I don't mind saying the number when it's really impressive. And she said, oh, but it didn't appraise yet. I said, nope, it didn't, but it sold. Because you know why I knew it was going to sell? Because the buyer loved the home.
Yeah.
We found I didn't have 30 people at my open house. I had 7.
The buyer.
But the buyer was, we just have a funny story. They weren't even looking for a house together.
And this is the buyer.
And this is the buyer. Okay. So they weren't even looking for a house. Like this house. Well, anyway. So side note.
That's how I bought my house. I wasn't looking for a house either.
Yeah, same here.
But when you find it, you find it.
Yeah, true love happens. But yeah, so anyways,
when you least expect it.
Yeah, so when someone calls you, and it's one thing for someone, I don't mind. Sometimes maybe they're lying. If an agent says, "I'm working on a refinance," okay, and I'll tell you what it's sold for. Maybe they're working on the house right next door, and they just want to know what that sold for, so they could price it right. It's okay. If I also, like they're not stealing my business. And you obviously said I would love to say that I remember the conversation, but I had gotten so many phone calls on that. It was so specific. It was like, well, did it close? And you were just honest, right? You just told me the truth. I'm refinancing my own house. Okay. Like I probably didn't even ask you where your house was for my next listing. I said, like, where's your house?
No, you did, but I told you, I was like, if I said, I'll make you a deal. And I told you the same thing literally 2 months ago.
Oh yeah.
I said,
it's on record now. If I sell this house,
I will call you to sell it.
I can only call you.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly how the people on Princess Gate feel.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yes. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, I know it's a small world. And it worked out.
Yeah.
My closing helped your appraisal, and all's well with the world.
And so like when I seen you at the last open house too, like the way that you take the approach of like, all right, look, this isn't a 4-bed, 2-bath in Patchogue that's 13 minutes from so and so and listed. It's like, okay, what are the perks of this house? What's like what is going to drive most people to this house, and let's focus on that and let's advertise that. Let's put it in a video. Let's market it. Let's put it in the broker remarks. Like the way that you go about selling the houses is why they sell the way that they do, and not just like a regular, best and final by 3:00 on Tuesday, and I'll let you know what the seller thinks. Like,
yeah.
But that's why you get those listings. You get these.
That's the same reason I should get them. Yes.
Yeah. It's big.
To all white elephants out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those are not the easy ones. You get.
Those are actually absolutely not the easy ones. It's very strange. It's like they're really fun. They're really fulfilling. And I'm not trying to be like self-serving either, but they are fulfilling. Not that you want to have the difficult ones to do, but it's like if I said, "Hey Sal, I'm in love with this house, and I'm going to have to spend $1.5 million on this. It's in Oakdale, and here are my finances, and here's what I could do. Fill it, And you'd be the person that I would actually say. I wouldn't go to 10 mortgage people. I would go to you and say, "Hey Sal," knowing that if someone's going to figure it out, I think it'll be you. And it'd be like, see, can it be done? The other smart person in the industry, in our industry that I know, is my actual boss, the owner of Coldwell Banker, I mean, the Good Life, he is another person that can figure it out. Like he's the person that we've figured things out for other agents, other clients, like the idea of installment loans, the idea of, like not a wraparound, but it's, I did an owner financing deal with a house that still had a mortgage on it. And it was actually for the VP of, I think, Sendan at the time.
So would they want to assume the mortgage and then they had to take out a loan for the rest of it?
No, we set it up like a rental because the buyers were two school teachers, and the mom was their agent. Well, obviously one of the moms, and she said, this is what's going on. They just did a short sale. They were doing a short sale, but here's what they have. I'm like, okay. So off the bat, I call my client and I'm like, oh, you guys are good with the owner financing? Your money can make you money. And they're like, yeah, we'd be okay with it. Okay, so I'm setting everything up for owner financing. And then just as we're getting almost fine tuning the detail, my old client says, oh, Ted, we have a mortgage on the house. I said, well, you really can't do owner financing if you have a mortgage. You can't be second, it doesn't work that way. And they said, so then I went back to the drawing board. And this one I may or may not have thought of myself because I was like, I just had just enough information in my head. I was like, how would you, and this is a market where the houses weren't selling like crazy. I was like, how would I rework this deal? So then I called them up and said, well, wait a minute. We were going to do 30-year amortized mortgage with a 5-year balloon payment. Okay. So what if we did the same exact thing? And except you're not going to owner finance the house to these nice people. You are actually going to rent them the house, but the rental payment will act like a 30-year amortized loan. So then at the end of the 5 years, they just have to refi out that amount. Well, not refi, sorry. They would just get a new mortgage for that amount. Typical. I don't know. It all made sense in my head and made sense to my seller. And, hey, wham, bam, 69 Climber closed.
Now,
5 years later, I got half my commission at the time of contract, lease essentially, and then the other half came in
when they refinanced that.
When they refinanced that, when they mortgaged it out.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually worked.
Yeah, and who knows if in the future if these rates keep going up or if the inventory gets smaller, like you might end up having to do stuff like that again.
Well, I'm hoping. I would love to. I think one of my questions now is going to be for anyone who's going to be selling, and I've been asking it to all my clients. Let's find out if your mortgage is assumable, especially if they got it with a 2.2 or 2.5 interest rate, and then we need the buyer that will have a significant down payment, and we could figure things out. If the market adjusts where the houses aren't selling like wildfire.
Well, what about this? You take out a $600,000 loan right now, it's going to run you about $4,000, $4,400 in principal interest. If you did it a year and a half ago, it would run you about $2,200.
Okay.
So you're saving $2,000 because you have that loan. So what if that house is only worth maybe $650 now because they just bought it recently for $625 or $630, right? But I'd be willing to pay $750 for that house if I could assume $600,000 of it on an FHA loan.
Right.
Because my payment's going to be $1,500 cheaper and it's going to be for 30 years. But what if I don't have the $150,000? Why not take out a second that seller financed on the back end as a second mortgage? The seller's still going to get it, and worst case scenario, the seller doesn't, but they're still getting their money and they have a much higher interest rate on their profit.
So so the seller takes the second. Oh, seller finance. Oh, I thought you were saying get them to get a second loan and you kind of like take over. No,
they could do that, but they're never going to get a mortgage above market value, but you could get a second lien above market value. Because why not?
What happens with the first mortgage? It's still there?
Stays FHA.
So you take their mortgage. Well, you don't get it to assume
their mortgage.
Wait, if it's assumable.
If it's assumable, FHA. Okay. You'd have to go FHA.
Okay.
But you could approach these FHA sellers right now. If you found a list of FHA people that bought the house a year to a year and a half ago, and you found out that they put 3.5% down. Maybe they're under that. Maybe they're over the head. Maybe they're not. But maybe they want to move, right?
Okay.
If you could get them $150,000 more than what their house is worth, legally and fairly, because you're only going to have to take out a mortgage for $100,000.
Right. You assume, and then you refi, or you take a second loan.
Well, exactly. Okay. Like you would assume the $600,000, and then you'd have to take $100,000 out from somewhere else. If you have it yourself, God bless.
So what you're saying, my way was very simple. So when I described it as you assume the loan and then you give the people $200,000. That only works if you have $200,000. So I assume the same loan, but because my monthly payment is lower, now I can actually mortgage more.
Right.
So I take a second loan, and that's the money that I give to the seller. Totally. I need it simple for me.
Well, because someone with $200,000 will be more inclined to be like, I'm not giving you anything extra for your house. It's not worth it. I have $200,000. I only need a mortgage for $400,000. But if you're shopping at 3.5% down, and you're buying something for $600,000, and now you find out that your payment's going to be $2,400 instead of $4,400, but all you got to do is take out a loan for $100,000 at 7%, 10%, payable to the seller.
But meanwhile, you have a great loan at 2.5%, which is
that you could die in.
Yeah, so it's like attention sellers. If you have a
FHA loan.
FHA loan and you close anytime between the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2023.
Yeah, middle of 2022. We were in the sixes by middle of last year.
There might be ways you can get an extra $100,000.
Yeah,
that's the same rule that I apply when, especially people underestimate how many people don't have mortgages. Owner financing. Yep. Owner financing is great.
Yeah.
Owner financing is. I mean, these sellers don't realize what kind of a gold mine they could be sitting on,
especially with where rates are now.
Yeah, and now see this is part of the reason you're on this podcast. A lot of people might not think that way.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't choose not to think out of the box. Some people have never had to. So that's an industry issue, and that goes for real estate agents as well. If you've never had to think outside the box, I mean, you'd be shocked at the weird deals that I don't even know how many weird.
I've never heard a realtor talk about creative financing ever until we met. So that, like, to me is I haven't heard people in my industry talk about it, let alone.
You should know I did this when I was 28.
Real estate or mortgages?
No. I started real estate when I was 26. That creative financing thing was something I concocted when I was like 3 years in the business. That's the time when you have the most creativity, because it's like you don't know any better. It's like, well, why can't we get a mortgage on top of the third mortgage?
Make it work. Yeah,
yeah, it's my one deal. I need to make this happen.
Yeah. So the way that you put stuff together like that, like I feel the same way. Like, we do the 25% down conventional appraisal waivers. Like, we do those deals all the time. But, like, it's not until like there's someone calls you and they're like, hey, I'm working with another bank. My buyer just got a time of the essence letter. They already gave him a commitment. He's got 14 days left. There's $80,000 down at contract. His boxes are packed. His mom is homeless. Like, can you handle this deal? Like, I literally, like, because that scenario literally just happened to me 2 weeks ago.
It's nice and fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
We cleared 5 loans last month that came from other banks that were dead at other banks, right? So that's like when you're I don't even want to say exceptionally good, but when you're just better than average at what you do, and you're handed stuff like, you don't have to be the best loan officer on the planet. You just got to be better than the schmuck that messed it up before you. And odds are he was close, right? Because he waited until there was a time of the essence letter. So, like, how close was he? Send me the documents. Let me check it out.
Yep.
And I remember even talking to Yama. This was like maybe the 5th or the 6th, and he's like, these loans. I was like, we're closing all of them. He's like, no way. I said, we're closing all 6 of them. It's going to happen. And we closed 5 of them for the month, but we're closing the next one on the 15th. They all closed.
Very good.
But it's the same concept.
It's like I hear, like my agent comes in. It's like, oh, the ex-wife is squatting in the house, and she's this and this and this, and it's like, I love all my agents, especially this one. I know her for years because she used to flip houses. But it was like, all right, don't worry, hold my beer. Please. A squatter? That I know how to deal with. What was it? I walked into a house a few weeks ago. Oh my God, a month and a half ago. We're actually doing the last open house because it's selling this weekend, or it's just selling this weekend. Yep. And they were like, we have a big problem. I'm like, uh-oh. And like the previous agent had sent a photographer over, and they just disliked the photos. I was like, that one's easy. Hold my beer. I have the best photographer, so don't worry. He's coming this weekend. And it was like, I love the little problems that you could just solve because they feel so good. The big problems, those I thrive on. Those I enjoy.
Do you feel like the little problems are the problems that people get worried about, and then the big problems are the ones that people think
should be worried about? The fire that the neighbor just set, and it's going to burn the house down. That's the one you should worry about.
Yeah, like you were worried about the handrail for the appraisal, but you forgot to tell me the house is in foreclosure.
Yeah. And do you think we'll need a handrail?
And the person you're buying it from is your husband. Then you guys live together. Like, those are the things I need to know about.
Oh, Ted, I have a lien. Yeah, for like $200,000.
Yeah.
No, I love the fact that we've gone, and you have to enjoy this too, I'm sure. that we've gone through all those problems, and we were able to help the majority. Maybe I think we helped everybody, but like I've gone through all these problems, and I love it. Yeah, and it's great. Like a three-way deal, and it's like $90,000 appraisal shorts across the board, and it's like people would look at it like, oh no, and it's like Right. Everyone has $300,000. Look at this. We can make everybody work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite problems are the ones that are no, they're not my favorite because there's no challenge. We had a $50,000 appraisal short, and it was in a higher price point at the time. Because $850,000 was high consider a while ago in Brookhaven, and get an email, the house only appraised for $799. Okay, and the agent, it was an agent that was on the deal with me, and she said, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" I said, "Wait." It was like, oh, okay, no problem. We spoke to the buyer. They're just making up the difference. It's fine. Those are like problems you don't usually have because it's not every day that a buyer is like a millionaire.
So, we've turned so many buyers, like we've won so many contract deals because the first thing people won't do is waive the appraisal because their realtor tells them not to waive the appraisal or not to waive a percentage of the appraisal, and it's like your buyer's putting down 30%. Why are you not waiving a percentage of the appraisal? Oh, because my buyer doesn't want to pay more than what the house is worth. Do you understand the market that we're in? We are in an above market offer. If you put in an above asking price offer, but you're not willing to waive the appraisal, you're not putting in an above.
And even if we weren't in this crazy strong market for a seller's market, I just had the same thing happen, and my buyer happens to be the son of my agent, and his mom was like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't waive the appraisal. All right. And then he says to me, the taxes are so low. I could keep this house as a rental. It's a condo,
right.
And
there's more value there.
I'll buy this either way." I'm like, okay, then we're waiving the appraisal because that was the last thing that the guy said before he gave us an accepted. So that was it. Did the home inspection in a couple of hours.
And how did it appraise?
Oh, my deals, I think it'll appraise. I think it's the ones that you're most afraid of that end up appraising, and it's the ones that you think, oh, this house has a beautiful freeform saltwater pool. Yeah, and then you're like, uh-oh.
Right, well, that's why it's $200,000 over market, and it doesn't count. But like I've explained to people, I'm like, listen, this is what's going to happen. You're putting down $100,000, your payment's $4,000, and your cash to close is $110. If this house appraises short, your payment's $4,000, you bring in $100,000, and you like the
that's
numbers
amazing
don't change.
to me. That is amazing to me. I feel that that's actual magic.
That nothing changes?
Yeah, because it was explained to me a long time ago, and then it happened. It's like some people make the changes, and I'm like, and I tell the buyer, I'm like, talk to your mortgage guy because I don't know how this works, but your payment is going to be the same, and somehow you're going to have more money in your bank account. And I can't understand it either. So, but it's apparently going to be the case. It just happened. It happened 2 years ago on my agent's son's purchase. And she was like, "So wait a minute, Danny's going to save 10%. He only have to do 10% down payment now, and his payment is still going to be the same." I said, "Yeah, somehow it works."
Because it's the way that I usually explain it is, you're buying for $500, you're borrowing $400. If the house appraises for $475. You're still borrowing $400. We're not changing your loan amount. So if we're not changing your loan amount, we're not changing your payment. If we're not changing your interest rate, we're not changing your payment. So now technically your down payment is $75,000. Technically, in the bank size, you're bringing that extra $25,000, but you were always bringing that extra $25,000 because you were putting down $100,000. So if it appraises for $450, if it appraises for $425, you're still borrowing $400. It only gets sticky if you start getting close to, if it appraises $200,000 short and you only have $150,000, now you're in trouble because you can't borrow against less than what the house is worth.
Because it has to do with risk that the investor has taken.
So the only thing that changes is your LTV, your loan to value. So now instead of you borrowing 80% LTV, now the bank looks at it as it's 85 or it's 90. But because of the laws that they just changed, the interest rates get cheaper if you put down less money. So it's like you actually save money if your appraisal comes in short.
Sounds like you're getting me a $1.2 million loan. No, I'm kidding.
Right. No, so things are getting better, and like the buyers that I've been working with understand this. I make sure they do, and the realtors do too, and they go in strong because if you're putting in an offer for $500 with an appraisal contingency, and someone offers $490, your offer is only $500 if it appraises. The seller knows that, so now they go with the cash offer.
All right, last 3 questions.
Go for it.
And this involves my memory because I don't have anything to write with. Okay. First question, what's your favorite color?
Red.
Okay, give me 3, tell me why. Describe red.
So I'm colorblind, actually. And Red is very hard for me to distinguish between orange, but it's a lot easier for me to tell the difference between red and orange than blue and purple and green and yellow. So I've just stuck with red because it's always been like I've been able to see it.
Okay, but that's not describing red. Tell me how red makes you feel. I need a description on red. 3 words.
Powerful. What would be a word for like standoutish? Like
Stand out.
yeah.
I'm sure there's a good adjective, but I haven't been in high school in a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too. Do standoutish with 2 dashes,
Okay.
and important.
Okay. Second question. Favorite animal?
I've always said eagle since I was like 1 year old or 2 years old to this question.
Okay. Now tell me why.
For the same reason, I think they're the fastest flyers, and flying's always been like a thing for me. I've always like looked
What
at
else
that
about
as,
the
like,
eagle?
superpower.
They fly fast. Another word.
They're like the predator of the sky,
Ooh.
right? They don't get eaten. They just do the eating, and they eat ground animals too, and then it's symbolic.
So patriotic? Or
Yeah.
just symbol of power?
I just think symbol of power. I know it's tied to our country also, but I just feel like it symbolizes, all good things. Or
All right. Third question. You have to close your eyes and picture yourself. Everything around you is white. Yeah. Everything. You're just standing in a sea of white. You're wearing white, and
in Congress.
yeah, in the 1800s. And now tell me how that makes you feel.
At peace. Like I don't have my phone.
Peace. Yes. Give me 2 more words. Describe how you feel.
Fulfilled. And finished.
Well, those are pretty interesting words there. So this is just a weird personality test that I came across. Somebody did it to me a very long time ago. And so red, your favorite color. The choice of red, this is how others perceive you, how others look at you. So you wrote red, you said red, and we said,
What did I say again?
you said powerful, standoutish, and important. It's pretty nice. Eagle, the animal, is how you see you. You're a fast flyer. I could see that.
I don't look like I'm going either.
Predator of the sky, and symbolic of power. So similar features of the two.
Yep.
The last one. This is why I think it's. I've done this test. Everyone has been on the podcast, I think, almost, and my coach at OTF. She actually has been doing it to all her friends and family, apparently. So
Yeah, I didn't know this was a test. I thought these were 3 random questions.
yeah, 3 random questions. It's not a test. Oh, it's not a test. You can't fail this. It can only tell me about you. It doesn't tell me anything bad or good about you. But white is actually that's the whole scenario is supposed to be the answer. Your answers are how you feel about death. Well, I'll start from the bottom up because you said finished, fulfilled, and peace.
That's what I pictured.
This is how you view death. And I mean it in a positive way.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my 3 questions that everyone gets these days. I did it. I'm gonna just do it at all my office meetings if I ever have.
Have you
one.
seen like answers that surprise you, or answers that you didn't want to like read what they meant to people?
No, the only surprise is how crazy accurate this is.
Yeah.
Because so there's a podcast that I did. My first podcast wasn't here. It was actually at my friend's podcast studio. And I had someone interview me, and they did this to me. And if anyone wants to go back and see it, they should, because that is hysterical. Because my answers were were hysterical about the difference of how I know other people see me and that how I see me. That was a little too much. I was like, no, because I think I chose a cheetah. And I have no idea why I chose a cheetah, but I was like, I don't know, maybe it was a leopard print. And there was something I said about the cheetah, sexy and limber, and I was like, oh, that's wrong.
I gotta watch yours now.
Yeah, I'll have to bring it back. Well, Sal, I think we're going to have to do this again because there were some topics that you touched on that I was like, oh no, we have to talk about that even further.
Yeah, we'll do an extended version.
Yeah, and I have one topic I wanted. I'd love for you to be on, and just let's talk about how lazy are people.
Oh, I could go on forever about that.
Yeah, so that one I'll have a scotch with that.
Yeah.
So I'm the real Ted G, and this is the real Sal, who also has another title. I'll say that one. Aren't you the gloat?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that to stick still. The greatest lender of all time. That's we played off of an old Biggie song, but yeah, we did that.
And I'm still waiting for my T-shirt that says "Groat."
The greatest realtor of all time.
Yeah. Okay.
I still have an L for you, but I gotta get that one made up. I'll just do one of one.
Sal,
thank you, Ted.
Awesome. I
appreciate
Ted,
you.
and this is the Real Ted G podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and somewhere else that I always forget.